Now over to you, ma'am.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. So let me share my screen. Okay. So I hope you remember this problem from yesterday and I don't have to go over the question again. Does anyone want me to go over the question again, or should I just go to the solution directly?
Ma'am, we are getting messages in the chat saying that your voice is a little bit too feeble. Could you actually consider increasing your microphone volume?
Okay, sure. Just let me know if it's still too low.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so does everyone understand this question, or can I move on with the solution? Should I explain the question again? What would you prefer?
Ma'am, we have responses from the chat asking us to explain the question again, so it would be extremely useful to them if you could.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
So the question says that we have X megabytes per month, okay? That's this first input, the number of megabytes that we get per month. Then the second input is the number of months for which we have data, okay? So they're giving us the usage for 3 months. And then what they want as the output is the 4th month, how much data he will have at the beginning of the month, okay? So for example, we have 10 megabytes at the start of each month, and 3 is the number of months for which we have data. So in the first month, he uses 4 megabytes. So there's 6 remaining since it's 10 minus 4. And then he gets another 10 at the start of this new month. So it's 6 remaining from here plus a new 10. So that's 16, okay? And that same thing repeats. At the end, he gets 28 for a new month, okay? For the next month after this 2. And the same thing for these 2 inputs. So did everyone understand that? Are there still problems with the audio?
No, ma'am.
Ma'am, we are getting messages saying that your voice is still a bit too low. But we are also getting messages saying that the question that you explained is perfectly fine and they are able to understand it, ma'am.
Okay, so I think I'll just move on to the solution unless someone already has some solution that they want to put in the chat. I'll give you maybe a minute or two to put the for loop or some part of the solution in the chat. Okay, I can see one solution.
I'm very happy to be a part of Chennai Institute of Technology's Career Compass 4.0. Through the various events and panel discussions that are planned over the next 2 weeks, students will get a chance to interact with working professionals, industry veterans.
Okay.
Individual.
So I think that a couple of you have got the right answer. That's really good. So I'm going to go on to the solution, okay? And just keep in mind that there's many possible solutions for this. This is just what I have chosen to do, okay? If you have a different solution, that could still be right. So the first thing I'm doing is taking the input, the first line, okay? That's 10 here, 15 here, into a variable called maximum, okay? This is just the variable name. You can call it whatever you like. Then I'm taking the second input, which is the number of months, this input, into a variable called count. And then I'm setting one more variable, final, which will be my result, to maximum, okay? And the reason I'm doing this is because suppose I have 0 months of data, okay? I just have 10 and 3, and I don't have any inputs here. My result would be 10, right? Because the first month I would have 10 megabytes. So that's why I'm setting my result to my initial capacity, my original maximum amount, okay? and then I'm looping through range of count. So that will be 0, 1, 2, okay? Because in this case, count is 3, okay? In all cases here, count is 3, but it may be anything. And this again doesn't have to be range of count. It could be range of 1 comma count plus 1, or pretty much anything that gives you 3 iterations of the loop, okay? So the important thing here is that we have 3 iterations of the loop. This actual variable I is not used anywhere. I could even replace it with an underscore if I want, because it's not being used inside my loop, okay? And then I'm taking the usage as input in each iteration of the loop. So 3 times, like first time I'll be taking 4 as input, second time 6, and third time 2. And then I'm subtracting the usage from my final amount, okay, from my result. And then again, since I'm going to have a new month, so I'll have my my original data refreshed, I'll add the maximum again to my result, okay? And I'll repeat this 3 times because here my input is 3. Suppose this was 4, I would repeat it 4 times, okay? Just the number of times which is given here in the second line of the input. And then finally I come out of the loop and I print the result. So are there any questions about this?
Ma'am, we have one question asking why have you taken final is equal to maximum?
Okay, so suppose my input was just 10 comma 3, okay? Then in that case, what they would be asking for is the amount of data that he has available in the first month itself, right? If my input was just 10 on the first line and 3 on the second line, and I didn't have any data for any data usage, okay? So the question in that case would be asking how much data does he have for the first month, okay? So in that case, I wouldn't even be entering my loop, because range of count would be range of, sorry, this wouldn't be 3, this would be 0. So range of count would be 0, okay? Just range of 0, which is nothing. So it would never go into the loop, okay? So in that case, I would just have to print this original capacity, the original maximum amount. So that's why I'm setting final to maximum, okay? Did you understand that? And yes, you can use while loop. I just chose to use for loop over here. While loop will also work. And final is not a keyword. Final is just a variable name. Okay, did everyone understand that? Should I explain it again?
Yes, ma'am. The students seem to have grasped the concept, so you can move on, ma'am.
Okay, great. So we're going to be doing a lot of loops today. So this question is basically asking for you to say whether these names are in ascending order or descending order or neither. Okay, so here you can see it's decreasing. Here it's a mix of both, so the output is neither. And here it's ascending or increasing, whatever you want to call it. So this first number is the number of names that will be in the input. Like there are 11 names here, and the rest is just the names, okay? So how do you think we would do this? What sort of loop would we use, and what condition would we have inside the loop? And keep in mind that there can be many possible solutions. Okay, yeah, we would use the if condition. So can anyone say what the condition will be? And what the loop range would be, assuming we're using a for loop? Yeah, you can use a while loop also if you like.
Ma'am, we have a question in the chat asking you to once again explain the question.
Okay, sure. So the question says we have 5 names, for example, okay, Joe, Bob, Andy, so on. So are these names listed in ascending order or descending order or neither? Like here, in the alphabet, ascending and descending order, Joe will be after Bob, right? So, and so on for the rest of the names. So this is descending order or decreasing order. This is a mix of both, if you can see, because we have Hope over here, then Alex here, then something starting with T over here. So it's a mix of both. And this is ascending. So not like, we don't want to check each within each name. We want to check between names. Are they ascending or descending or a mix of both? I can see some questions about using ASCII code, and I suppose you can if you really want to, but there are other ways to do it also. So if you want to use ASCII code, if you want to put the code in the chat, then maybe I can take a look at it. But I haven't used ASCII in my solution. But that's a good idea. Okay, should I move on to the solution? I think
Yes, ma'am, you may move on to the solution.
Yeah. Okay, so first thing I'm doing is taking the number of inputs, okay, which is 11 in this case, 5 here, 4 here, and then I'm setting this previous variable to an empty string. I'll explain that in a minute, okay. Then I have 2 flags. I hope you remember flags from some of yesterday's examples. So I have an increasing flag, which I'm setting to true. This is a Boolean variable. And a decreasing flag, which I'm setting to true again, okay? So my increasing flag is my way of checking whether the names are listed in ascending order, and decreasing flag is my way of checking whether the names are listed in decreasing or descending order, okay? So now I'm doing for underscore in range of count. So that will be 0 to 4 in this case, 0 to 10 in this case. Again, it doesn't have to be range of count. It can be 1, count plus 1, and so on. And this doesn't have to be underscore. It can be some variable like I, but because I'm not using it, I made it an underscore, okay? And then within my loop, in each iteration, I'm taking the name as input first. So that's current, okay? My current variable is set to each name, one by one. And then I'm checking, is my previous an empty string, okay? So just consider this example for a minute. Suppose these were my 4 inputs, okay? And then in my first input, when I have A, I don't have anything to compare it to, right? It's just the first thing. So suppose I have only one name, and it's going to be neither, it's going to be, always ascending or always descending or neither. Doesn't have any meaning just by itself. So there's nothing to compare it to before that. So that's why I'm setting my previous to empty. And if my previous is empty, it means that I can just directly set previous to current, okay? This can be a little confusing. So if you need me to repeat anything, just put it in the chat, okay? So let me just repeat that once more. I'm taking my current, which is A, as input. I'm checking if previous is empty. Basically, I'm checking whether or not it's the first name in the input. That's what it's doing, okay? If it is the first name in the input, I'm just setting previous, my variable previous, I'm setting that to current, which will be A in this case, okay? In the case of the first name. Then in the next loop iteration, I'm taking B as input this time, okay? So current is B. And my previous won't be empty anymore because I set previous to A in the last iteration, right? So now it will come inside this if condition. and it will see is current less than previous, is B less than A, okay? And this less than works for full strings also, for full names also. So it will check is current less than previous, and if this is true, it means that it's definitely, hold on a minute. Sorry, it's going to check if current is less than previous, and if this is true, it means that it's definitely not going to be increasing, right? Suppose here, for example, C is less than D, so it's not going to be increasing. Like you can see here, DC is descending order, okay? And then on the other hand, if current is greater than previous, here, if B is greater than A, set the decreasing flag to false, okay? Meaning I know it's not going to be decreasing either because this particular pair is in ascending order or increasing order. And then again, I set previous to current. So previous becomes B. So at each step, I'm setting previous to my input, okay? And then finally, when I come to the last variable, to the last input, to the last name, then I'll exit the loop. If my increasing flag is still set to true, it means that my names are sorted in increasing order or ascending order. If my decreasing flag is set to true, it means my names are sorted in decreasing order. And if neither of these is true, it means that my names are sorted in neither decreasing nor increasing order. And writing increasing flag like this is the same as writing this, okay, equal to true. It's just kind of a short form for writing the same thing, okay? You can just skip this because it's a Boolean variable, so it can either be true or false. So you don't have to explicitly write equal to true, okay? So should I explain this again, or was that confusing for anyone here? Okay, what is the use of previous and what is the use of not equal to? Okay, so not equal, exclamation equal to means not equal, okay? You've seen this double equal, which means are these two things equal? No, exclamation equals is the opposite of that. It means not equals, okay? And, okay, I will run this also once. Okay, so it's decreasing and that's the expected output. I'll run it with this example so I can explain using the example again. Okay, so the output is neither. So I'll just go through this once more, okay? So first line is taking this number 11 into count. Second line is setting some variable called previous to empty. It's just an empty string. Then I have two flags. One is to check whether this entire sequence is increasing. One is to check whether this entire sequence is decreasing. Okay? Any questions so far? Okay, I'm going to assume there aren't any questions so far. Now, I'm going to start my loop, okay? So my loop goes from 0 to 10. And I'm not using this variable, so I've made it an underscore. Then I'm taking my name as input into current, okay? So in my first step here, current is going to be hope, okay? This is going to be the value of the variable. Then I'm going to check, is previous equal to an empty string? Is previous empty? That's my way of checking if this is the first name that's in the input, okay? So if it's the first name, there's nothing to compare it to, right? There's nothing before it. There's nothing previous to that name. So I just set previous to current, to hope, okay? And I don't do anything else in this iteration. So there's different ways of doing this step, okay? Instead of setting this to empty initially, I could maybe have a check for, like I could make this I, and I could say if I not equal to 0, then do this comparison, okay? So there are different ways of doing this same thing. This is just the way that I've chosen to do it, okay? Using this previous, which is empty and so on. So are there any questions so far? Okay. I can't see anything, so I'm going to continue. So in my first step, when I took hope as input, I checked if previous was empty, and if it was empty, I just set previous to hope. So here, that's all I did, nothing else, no comparison, no changing of flags, nothing. Then in my second iteration, when I is equal to 1, I'm taking this name as input, okay? So current is equal to this. And now I'm checking if previous is empty here, but it's not empty anymore, right? Because previous is now equal to hope. I set it in the last iteration, in the last line, okay? So since it's not empty, I'm going to come into this if condition, okay? And I'm going to see, is current less than previous? Is A less than H? I mean, it's going to check the full name, but we can find out just by looking at the first character itself. So is A less than H? And it is, right? So it's going to set increasing flag to false, meaning the names definitely cannot be sorted in increasing order because the first two themselves are decreasing, okay? And then it's going to check, is current greater than previous? This can be an else if I want, that's fine, okay? And then it's going to set previous to current. So now previous will be my second name, okay? Now I'll just show you with one more name. So it's going to come to my I is equal to 2. It's going to say current is equal to Becky in this case. And is previous empty? No, because previous is the second name, okay? Now is current less than previous? Is Becky less than this? It's not, it's greater than, right? So it will come in here, current is greater than previous, and it will set the decreasing flag to false, meaning my names are definitely not decreasing now because I have these two sorted in increasing order or ascending order, okay? And that process will keep repeating for every name in the list, okay? So what I'm doing basically is just comparing names two at a time, okay? That's the basic logic of this. And at the end of this, after I've processed all the names, if my increasing flag is true, it means that this condition was never true, okay? It means that current was never less than previous. So a later name was never less than an earlier name. So my names are sorted in ascending order, okay? Increasing order. And the same applies for decreasing flag. If decreasing flag is true, if this equals true, it means that my later names were never greater than my previous names, okay? So if that is true, I print decreasing. And if neither of these is true, it means it's a mix of both increasing and decreasing. So I print neither. Okay, I hope you understood. I can see some questions about sorting. I won't get into that right now, but in this case, you can use it, okay? So, can I move on to the next question? And I can see a question, what if two names are going to be the same? That's a good question. Okay, it says here that duplicate names will not be allowed on a team. So that's why we're not considering it. But that's a really good thing to bring up. Okay, so I hope I can move on now.
Ma'am, one more question. Is it checking only that index 0?
The first character, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay, no, it's checking the entire name. I was just using the first index as an example because that itself is quite clear. But it is checking the entire name, not just the first index. Okay, so now I hope I can move on. Okay. So this question is basically saying you are given some string, just one string as input, okay? Like this, for example. And what they want is they're trying to convert this string into this one, PER, okay? And this string is all, your input string is always going to be of a length which is a multiple of 3, okay? So it can be 3, 6, 9, and so on. And they want you to not replace it, just see how many characters you need to change to replace it with PER. So let me just type that out for you in an example so you can understand. Okay, I shouldn't have opened the solution actually. Okay, so this is my input and this is what they want, okay? This is what they want to convert it into. And suppose I had 3 more characters here, then they would want to convert it into 1 more PER, okay? So the length of your final string has to be equal to this, and it has to be made up of just concatenations of PER. And they want to see how many characters you have to change in your original string to get this output. So you can see here you have to change S to P. E doesn't have to be changed because it's already E, right? Then C has to be changed to R and so on. So there will be, I think, maybe 6 or 7 changes here. You'll have to change S, C, R, T, Y, and T. Okay, all the E's are already correct, but all the other P and R characters have to be replaced. Okay, so they want that count of characters, that's all. So in this case, it's 4 because you have to replace S, C, R, and T to get PER. Okay, so the output is just 4. So did everyone understand this question?
Yes, ma'am. I think everyone has understood the question. You may proceed, ma'am.
Okay. Does anyone have any solutions? Okay, if anyone, sorry, let me show you the question in case you want to read that. So if anyone wants to put in any solutions, that would be great. Okay, yeah, I can see a solution that looks completely correct. So that's really good. So any other solutions? Okay, just to be clear, you don't have to actually replace the string, okay? You just have to count the number of characters that you would have to change if you wanted to replace the string. Okay, I'm just going to explain this example once because I can see a couple of questions about that. So in this example, I'm just going to put a space so that you can see the characters really clearly. So first I want to change S to P because I want PER and S is obviously not P. So P. Then E, so my count becomes 1, okay? Because I've changed 1 character. Then I want to change E, but E is already correct. So I don't make any changes here. I don't increase my count. Okay, I just keep E where it is. Then I want an R over here because I want PER. So C and R are not the same. So I put R, I increase my count to 2. Okay. And again, I want to repeat PER. So instead of R, I want P. So my count becomes 3. I want an E over here. I already have an E over here. So my count does not change. And for T, I want an R over here. So my count increases by 1. Okay, I've basically told you the program logic also. So if anyone can, put the code, that would be great. Anyone else? I know some of you already have. Okay, I think a couple of you have got the answer and that looks correct. So I will move on to the solution. Okay, so first I'm taking in, let me just write out the example also here. Okay, so first I'm taking in my input, which is secret in this case, okay, and I've called the variable cipher, and I'm creating a variable replacement and setting it to PER, okay, just one PER, because I want to concatenate this a certain number of times, okay. Then I'm setting my replacement index to 0 and count to 0. So this I'll explain in the loop. And count is the output which we want, okay? The number of characters which we're replacing, I've called that variable count. And that will be 0 initially, because suppose my input itself is this, my final result should be 0. So that's why I'm setting count to 0 initially. Now, for each index in the range, which is the length of this cipher. So let's go from the inside to the outside. Len of cipher will be 6. So this will be range of 6, okay, for this example. And then that will give you value 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay. So index will take those values from 0 to 5. So if this character, if the cipher of index is not equal to replacement of replacement index. So if S is not equal to P, because both are 0 initially, replacement index is 0 and my first value in my index loop is also 0, okay. So if they're not equal to, which is the case here, then I increment my count by 1, okay. And then regardless of whether they're equal or not, I'm incrementing my replacement index by 1, meaning I'm going to the next character in PER, which is E in this case, okay? And I'll come to this in a minute, okay? So basically right now, all I'm doing is going to E. My replacement index will be 1. And this index will also be 1. So I'll check this same thing again. E is equal in both. So I don't increment my count. I don't come in here and I increment my replacement index again. It becomes 2. C and R are not equal. So I increment count by 1. And then it tries to increment my replacement index to 3, okay? But my replacement is only of length 3. So that would give me an index out of range error if I had replacement of 3, okay? Suppose I didn't have this mod 3. Okay, let me just undo that. Suppose I didn't have replacement plus 1 mod 3. Then over here, I would end up getting replacement of 3, 4, 5, and so on. And since my replacement string is only 3 characters, I would have an error over here. So that's why I've used this mod 3, okay, to make sure that my replacement index is always 0 or 1 or 2. That way, when my replacement index gets incremented to 3, I do 3 mod 3, which is 0, and I come back to P, okay, to the start of this. It's like kind of looping around in here also. Okay, any questions about this? Okay, I saw a good question here, which is in variable replacement, can we give this itself? Okay, so you can't hard code, you can't directly give PER, because you don't know how many times you're going to need it at the start, okay? But what you can do is check how many times you'll need it by counting the length of your string and then do something like this, okay? So that is definitely one approach which you can try if you want. Okay, so, okay, I'll run this also. Okay, so the output is 4. Line 7, someone has asked me to explain. So this line is just checking if, okay, let me just replace this with actual numbers. Okay, so in the first iteration of my loop, cipher square bracket 0 means the first character in my cipher variable, which is S. Okay, not equal to, exclamation equals is not equals, replacement, okay, of 0, replacement square bracket 0, which is the first character in my replacement string. So if S is not equal to P, or whatever my input is, if that first character is not equal to the first character of my replacement string, then I increment count by 1. Okay, I do count is equal to count plus 1. Okay, and then I keep repeating this, because index in the next iteration becomes 1 and replacement becomes 1 and so on. Okay, they just keep increasing. I mean, the cipher index keeps increasing. This will go until 5 and replacement will go from 0 to 3. Okay, sorry, 0 to 2. Okay, is this case sensitive? I'm not sure which part you're asking about. And you can use another name. The variable name doesn't have to be cipher. Okay, I saw a question about what happens if the input is perfect, like the word perfect. So in that case, this is not a multiple of 7. The length of this is not a multiple of 3, sorry, because the length is 7, right? And they have said over here that the length is always going to be a multiple of 3. So this case won't happen. This case may happen because this is a multiple of 3. And count again is not a keyword, it's just a variable name. And line 9, I'll explain once more. Okay, so basically what's happening is at each step in each iteration, I start with 0 for my replacement character. I want to check first P, then I want to check E, then I want to check R. Okay, if this is equal to the first 3 characters of my cipher string. Then I want to check if this same thing is equal to the next 3 characters of my cipher string. So my cipher string has now become 3, 4, and 5, right? F is 3, E is 4, C is 5, the index of those characters, I mean. But this index remains 0, 1, 2, okay? So I can't just directly say if replacement of index, because then I'll get an index out of range error, because replacement of 5 would not make any sense, right? Because I only have 3 characters here. So that's why I'm doing replacement index plus 1 mod 3, modulus 3, okay? So at each step, I'm incrementing it by 1, and then I'm finding the remainder when I divide it by 3 to make sure that it never goes above 2, that it's always 0 or 1 or 2, okay? The percentage operator, this is called the modulus operator, and it just gives you the remainder when one number is divided by another. Okay, I hope everyone has understood this.
Ma'am, one more question, ma'am. Like while checking, whether it checks the case also. That's what, whether it supports a case sensitive here. Because in PER, E is capital. In perfect, the E is a small letter.
This is going to be uppercase, okay? I just wrote it lowercase, but they've mentioned in the question that assume that all the letters are uppercase, because this equal to check is case sensitive. If I gave this as input, small PER, it will change all of them. They won't be equal. Can lines 8 and 9 be switched? Okay, so line 8 is actually inside an if, right? So you can't switch them, because then you can't put this inside the if. This statement has to be executed in every iteration of the loop, but this statement has to be executed only in the case when the two characters are not equal. Okay, so any more questions about this, or can I move on?
Ma'am, we have another question asking if we can do, instead of replacement index plus 1 modulus of 3, can we just do index modulus of 3?
You mean removing this plus 1?
Yes, ma'am, that is the question, ma'am.
Okay, so if you did this, then initially your replacement index is 0, okay? And it would never change because 0 mod 3 is 0, so it would just always be 0. It would be like trying to get this string, okay? Just p over and over again. Because you're never changing your replacement index, so you're always comparing with the first character. So that's why we need plus 1. Okay, is there any other question about this?
Ma'am, there is a student asking a question. Can we use the if condition before the loop, that is at line number 5, to check the input is a multiple of 3 without checking the modulus operator, they are asking.
Okay, so my input, which is this cipher, which is this secret, is always going to be a multiple of 3, okay? They've said its length is going to be a multiple of 3. That's not what this is doing. This replacement index with the modulus 3 is for this line, for my PER, okay? So P has an index of 0, E has an index of 1, and R has an index of 2, okay? These are my indices of this replacement, okay? So at each step, I need to first check if P is equal to the first character, E is the second character, R is the third character. Then I have to check, is P equal to the fourth character? Is P equal to F, okay? And same, I have to keep repeating this. So I have to keep going 0, 1, 2, 0, 1, 2 over and over again, okay? I shouldn't go past 2 because that will give me an error because I only have 3 characters in here. So that's what this replacement index plus 1 mod 3 is doing, okay? It's making sure that I'm going through these one by one, okay? And never exceeding 2. It's not for the input which was given as secret or perfect or whatever. It's for my replacement, PER. Okay, I saw a question, is it necessary that the input string index 1 and 4 always be E? And that's not, it can even be something like this. Okay, it can be any input string which is whose length is a multiple of 3. So, any more questions?
No, ma'am, we are done with the question, so you can move on to the next question.
Okay, great. Okay, so this question is actually kind of similar to the previous one. But this time we actually have to create a new string, okay? So this time they've said when you have repeating characters, like here you can see I have 3 O's, replace it with just 1 O. Here we have many characters repeating. So whenever a character repeats, replace it with just one occurrence of that character, okay? I've written it here also. I hope you understood this. And if you understood, what do you think the solution would be? Okay, are there any solutions for this? I can see one solution and that looks correct, so that's great. I'll just wait for a couple more people to attempt this. And I will explain this again while some of you may be solving it. The question says, suppose we have a character repeated many times, like here I have like 5 or 6 O's, I have X many times. It's just saying replace them with a single occurrence of that character. You have 5 O's, make it just 1 O in your output. You have 4 X's, make it just 1 X in your output. That's all. Everything else remains the same. Okay, yeah, I think a couple of you have got the right answer. That's really good. Okay, and some of you seem to have got the correct conditions also, even if you didn't get the full answer, so that's great. Yeah, and I think you've all got the logic handled now. So I'm going to move on to the actual solution. Okay, so I'm going to take my string as input in the first line, okay, and I'm going to set my result, my final answer, to the first character in that string. So initially my result will just be R, okay, just the first character. That's what this line is doing. And the reason I'm doing this is because the first character can never be repeated, right? Because it's just the first thing in the string. There's nothing else in the string. Okay. And then what I'm doing is I'm looping through the rest of my string, starting from the second character, from 1 until the last character in the string. Okay. And I'm checking if each character is equal to the latest character which I added to my result. So you can see I've written result of -1 here, okay? So this gives me the last character of my result. Suppose my result was just some characters like this. Result of -1 would give me D, okay? It would always give me the last character in this string, okay? So it's going to check if each character is equal to the last character in this string. And this is an example of continue. You don't have to use continue, okay? This is just a way for me to show you how continue is used. So if they are equal, like suppose I already have an O here and I'm at this character. So I check, is this O equal to the last character of my result? And they are equal. So I continue. That means I don't execute this line. I skip this line and I come back to the first line of my loop, okay, to the next iteration of my for loop, okay. So if I am executing this for, let's say, the first 3 characters, okay, this is my input and this is my result. Initially, my result is just the first character, R. Then my index is 1 in my first iteration. So it checks, is string of 1, the second character in my string, is that equal to the last character in my result? O and R are not equal. So it comes to this line, okay, result plus equal to string of index. So it's just concatenating this character to my result. So now my result becomes RO. Then in my next iteration, my index is 2. Okay, so my string of index will be O again, but this time the next O, okay? And it will check, is this equal to the last character in my result? Is this equal to this? Just the last character. And they are equal. So it will come in here, it will go to continue. So this won't be executed, it will come back around here. Suppose I have one more character here, okay, just to show you. So now my index becomes 3 and string of index is F which is not equal to the last character here. So I append it. So finally it comes out of the loop and this will be my result. And I'll execute this once also. Okay. So any questions? Okay, I saw a good question here. Why is it not length of string minus 1? Okay, so length of string gives me, in this case, for this string, it gives me 4, okay, because there's 4 characters. So the indices which I want are 0, 1, 2, 3, okay? That's what I want my index to be. So length of string minus 1 means my range would go from, okay, so it would be 3, okay? Length of string minus 1 would just be 3. So my range would go from 1 to 3, and range is exclusive of the stopping point, okay? It does not include the stopping number. So it would just go 0, 1, 2. So this last character would not be checked. So that's why it's not minus 1, because range is exclusive of the last character of the stopping character, the stopping index, okay? I hope you understood that. Okay, and there's another good question. Why can't we use not equals and just put this line instead? And you can do that. I just wanted to show you how continue works. That is also a good way of doing it. Okay, any more questions? Okay, I think...
Ma'am, we have a question asking you to explain the loop once again.
Okay, let me just use another example. Okay. So initially, this is my input, my result is R. Okay, I hope this much is clear. Okay, so now I'm starting with my index as 1, okay? I'm not starting with 0 because I already have my first character in my result. So if I check, it's not really going to have any effect, okay? It just won't add the character because it's already there. It doesn't make a difference. Even if you put 0, there's not going to be any wrong output or any issue. It just doesn't, it's unnecessary. That's all, okay? It's not wrong, just unneeded. Then I'm going until my length of my string, okay, exclusive of the length of the string. So I think the length of this string is 5. That means it will go from 1, 2, 3, 4. It will not include 5, okay? So it will go up till m because the index of m is 4, okay? Then it will check, is O, string of index is 1, equal to the last character here. Are O and R equal? They're not. So it will append O. It will come to this line. Then it will check the same thing with this next O. Is O equal to this last character in my result? And this time they are equal. So it will continue. Okay. It will come back to the next iteration of my loop. So now my index will be here. Okay. It will be 3. So is this O equal to the last character in my result? Okay, and they are equal again. So again it will continue. It will come back to the next iteration. Now my index will be 4 and M is not equal to O, right? So it will append M. It will come to this line because this condition will be false. So it will come in here. It will append M to my result and then my loop is over. So it will print my result, okay? I hope everyone understood this time.
Yes, ma'am. And we also have another question asking you to explain what the continue statement does.
Okay, so continue is basically saying ignore all the code which is inside the loop after the continue and come back around to the first statement in the loop for the next iteration. So suppose my index value goes from 0, 1, 2, 3. okay? So suppose it's coming into the continue when my index is 0, okay? Just assume, forget about this stuff. Okay, suppose it's coming in here when my index is 0. It will continue, meaning it won't execute this line because this is inside my loop, but after the continue, it will come back to the first statement of my loop, and now index will be 1, okay? So that's what it's doing. It's just going to the next iteration of the loop and ignoring all statements after the continue which are inside the loop. Okay, I hope everyone understood. And let me move on to the next question, which is very simple. So I think all of you will be able to get this. Okay, so in this question, what they've asked you to do is, they've given you 2, 3, and 7, okay? So, actually, just give me a minute. Okay, so they've given you 2, 3, and 7. So they've said print the numbers from 1 up till 7, okay, up till the last number. It's 7 in all the examples here, but this number can be anything, okay? So print every number from 1 up till this third input. And if the number is divisible by the first input, print fizz. If the number is divisible by the second input, print buzz. If it is divisible by both of these, print fizz buzz instead of the number. In all other cases, you print the number itself. And by the number, I mean each number from 1 till 7 or whatever input they've given you. Okay, so if anyone can write the loop for this, I think this is easier than our previous example. So I hope you'll be able to do this. Okay, one of you has got the answer already. That's great. One of you has said using for loop and if condition. That's correct. But if you can write the code, that would be really good. Okay, and you have to use the modulus operator here, okay? The percentage operator, not the division operator. So yeah, I think a couple of you are getting it now. That's really good. Okay, great. I think you guys have got the hang of loops. I'll just explain this solution, and I think we'll have to stop after that. Okay, so I've taken my inputs. You guys have seen this a lot of times, so you must be knowing what it means. Just let me know if you don't, and I'll explain it again. And what I'm doing is for I in range of 1, n plus 1, okay? So I'm starting with 1, and I'm going up till n plus 1 because I want to include this number, okay? And then my conditions are just if it's divisible by x and y, I print fizz buzz. If it's divisible by only x, I print fizz. And if it's divisible by only y, I print buzz. Otherwise, I just print the number. And here, the ordering of your if statements is really important, okay? Because if you put this one first as your first if, you won't get the correct output in some cases. Should I stop now and continue next time?
Yes, ma'am. I think we can
Yes, ma'am.
we can have the explanation in next class.
Okay.